Hey, welcome back to The Dive. Our guest today is a seasoned executive and entrepreneur with over 20 years of experience in alternative investing. He will deep dive into Canada's Cannabis Act and the developments he expects to see, his thoughts on the company as a meme stock, the recent financial report, and what investors can look out for the company moving forward. He is the Chief Executive Officer at Sundial Growers, Inc. Zachary George joins us today. But before we bring Zach on, just a quick reminder to tap that subscribe button for me, please. Hey, Zach, welcome to The Dive.
Hi, Cassandra. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us today. Okay, so let's start off with Canada's Cannabis Act. There have been campaigns for certain substances that are currently regulated by the Act, such as CBD, to be excluded from its purview or more loosely controlled. What would that mean for the cannabis industry and for consumers?
So I believe you're talking about sort of the deregulation on CBD, which would create an over-the-counter opportunity in Canada. This would create significant opportunities both for companies in the sector as well as consumers. But there isn't a tremendous amount of visibility about that path going forward. So we're taking a cautious view, but it would certainly create a lot of opportunity if it did occur.
So currently, the Cannabis Act is going through a mandatory 3-year post-legalization review. Do you anticipate that any changes will be made to the Cannabis Act, or do you believe the government will largely stand pat? What do you think needs to happen?
That's a huge question, and it's a very good one. We do believe that you will see some moderate common sense reform occur. But as most situations, when you're dealing with the interface between government and industry, there's a strong likelihood that both sides will leave the table after this process sufficiently dissatisfied and frustrated. So we do believe there will be change. Will it be as much as some players or participants are calling for? Probably not.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so changing gears here, as we do with all of our new guests, what is the high-level 2-minute elevator pitch for Sundial Growers?
Sure, thanks for the opportunity. So Sundial Growers is a Canadian domiciled licensed producer of cannabis. We have the largest pure indoor cultivation facility in Canada, which is approximately 450,000 square feet. And it's located in Olds, Alberta, which is approximately a 30-minute ride from the Calgary airport. And we went public in August of 2019, and we've gone through some dramatic change in the last 2 years. I started as the CEO of Sundial in January of 2020, and we took the business through a dramatic restructuring and have now, over the last 10 to 11 months, repositioned the business around 2 core strategic pillars. The first being our integrated cannabis operations, where we're focused on really owning the relationship with the consumer and delighting them with high quality cannabis products. And the second pillar to our strategy is focused on investment opportunities within the cannabis sector internationally, and specifically in the US, where through our joint venture partnership, which is called Sunstream, we've been able to deploy secured and structured credit into the sector at very attractive rates of return.
Sounds great. So the company started off 2021 with a bang as the stock price rallied from 55 cents to a stunning 52-week high of $3.96 in February. Some say that the share price spike was precipitated by Reddit users. This leads us to our question. Do you consider Sundial a meme stock?
It's an interesting question. I think it's a bit of a hollow question, Cassandra. In answering yes or no as to whether Sundial is a meme stock, I'm not sure what your listeners will actually glean from that. What I would say is certainly we've seen an evolution in the capital markets, and definitively there has been an absolute rise of a new demographic of investor, and that investor has impacted the market and certainly has impacted Sundial over time. So the combination of stimulus, of working from home, of easier access to brokerage accounts, have all come together to create a dynamic which has given birth to this conversation and narrative around meme stocks. So if the question is, has there been a disconnect from time to time between the market valuation of the company and its intrinsic value, I think the answer would probably be yes. Certainly the operations of the company and its positioning haven't necessarily warranted the amount of volatility that we've seen over time. But I'm not as focused on whether or not we're a meme stock. I'm really focused on the underlying fundamentals for the business and long-term value creation for our stakeholders.
Yeah, makes sense. Thanks for answering that. Okay, so Sundial recently reported its financial and operational results with $14.4 million of revenue for the quarter ended September 30th, which was up significantly over the second quarter. What drove this revenue growth?
Cassandra, there are a number of crosswinds that are apparent in our operations and were visible through our third quarter results. We went through a massive restructuring in terms of our cultivation and processing capabilities. And as you are well aware, the Canadian market has been in turmoil and plagued by oversupply and excess competition. And so we've actually dramatically dialed back our cultivation activities to ensure that we had our cost structure right and that we were actually growing the right flower at the right specs to actually connect with consumers and deliver in terms of our brand promises. So we have pulled back on cultivation. And so you've seen throughout the year that revenue related to inhalables has declined slightly. But we also acquired what is the largest individual retail network in Canada in the closing of the Spirit Leaf acquisition in July. So you saw some of those revenues start to impact Q3, not on a full quarter basis, but for part of that quarter. And that really drove the growth. So we are very much a work in progress with a lot of change going on. And so it's really important for investors to do quite a bit of diligence and reading to understand those various factors that are in play from quarter to quarter. And we're going to see, I think, for the foreseeable future, a significant amount of activity, which will be difficult to understand just looking at the top line. We're really focused on profitability. And I think if investors really did the underlying work to study the comparable cash burn trends across these entities, they'll see that our approach and our methods are actually paying off because preserving capital is a key priority for the team at Sundial.
So on October 7th, 2021, the company announced that it had entered into an arrangement agreement with Alcana, a private liquor retailer. What has the reaction from shareholders been on the potential transaction?
So I'm assuming that with that question that you're asking about the reaction of Sundial shareholders. And we have a broad spectrum of investor that we're pleased to have support from in the industry. But it's been mixed. I think some investors understand the path that we're forging in terms of our exposure to retail and our goal to really own that relationship with the consumer. The Alcana definitive agreement, assuming the transaction closes, will also give us exposure to liquor distribution. So that diversification, I think, had some investors scratching their heads, but we've been in conversation and trying to explain the strategy going forward and the impact on the business and the opportunities that it creates. And so that engagement and education is ongoing.
So with the company still holding a strong cash position on its balance sheet, what are the plans to deploy the capital?
I would say that today, and we've talked about this publicly, we see a very interesting pipeline of investment opportunities in both secured and structured credit. And so we would expect in the coming months to deploy several $100 million of capital into those opportunities. And we look forward to updating investors as those transactions come together.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on today, Zachary, and telling us your story.
Thanks, Cassandra. Thanks for having me.
To our audience at home, thank you so much for watching today. We'll be back again tomorrow with more amazing content, so be sure to stay tuned by hitting that notification bell and tapping subscribe.